systems, right? Okay, hopefully not. To artist in recovery slash Darryl P. What's going on, dude? We were in Genesee, Roseman, California. It's 3:05 in the morning. I can't even see where shit. It's 26th of January, 2025. We're getting there, pal. We're getting there. Interesting article that you had. I think I came across this a while ago when I was hearing about it and reading about it too. Interesting that you go to technical college to get the mechanical skills necessary for drafting. And it does take a great deal of brain activity on that one. Understanding mathematics in your head. Me, I was lousy at math. I understand the concept of math. Math and me never mixed anyway. We never did. But these days, I'm wondering if anything else would be mixing with us anyway. You said that people are in decline. Well, the older generation debt is not counted, apparently. Well, we do count. Slowly fading out. And it is up to politics of local groups to determine whether or not the kids are actually going to be able to pass. It's also up to state government, not the federal government, to make sure that they actually have a theoretical adequate education. And you're afraid that America is on decline. Well, maybe. It's because of our own political and egotistical needs that we need whatever we're going to have to survive on. And yes, other countries have been diligent regarding their educational processes. We have gone lazy. It's not soft, it's lazy. We're bringing up all these authors, but come on. H.G. Wells, Time Machine, classic. I always loved 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, not just watching the theatrical version of Disney or some other version of it, but yeah, I read Wells on that one. It was deep, very deep. Of course, Shakespeare is very deep if you want to get into English literature. There was also the poem that I read a long time ago in an English literature class, decades right after I got out of high school. Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. And sometimes I feel like I'm him. It's not just reading the material, it's understanding the context, the perspective of it, and able to translate that into a format that the younger generation can understand. Trust me, I haven't written a lot of books in my lifetime. I've written a few books that hadn't got published yet. I'm scared to shitless about that one. Because I'm not quite sure if anybody else will be able to figure the stuff out and be able to appreciate it. I sent it over to a few people that I knew, and I never got back responses. So I'm like, oh great, just dump the stuff in a delete file, why don't you? And yes, if I haven't kept up with our writing practice of cursive, one does tend to forget it unless one tries to remember how to write the alphabet in cursive. And another thing you forgot is history. Now, this is the reasons why we have to keep studying things. You read the written word of other authors, which is good. We keep in communication, we're keeping in context, we're keeping in perspective, we understand a few things. We're trying to learn a lot more about ourselves by other people's points of views and understanding. As I tried to explain to a great deal of people, I guess maybe they just don't even bother to understand. Oh, I have to bring out. Oh, come here, college bear. Come here, college bear. Ever bringing him back to campus when I go back on there physically, and get a good photo shots of the bear. But that wasn't the one. That wasn't the idea I need to show you. my globe again. We can see it in this camera, all the perspectives, all the viewpoints, all the different things that's different and wrong or right with it. And here's the thing. Keep this in mind. You're thinking we're lack of intelligence, maybe. And I see the kids are not writing the languages like we used to. And they're only doing the keyboards. Well, maybe they're more intelligent in that format than we are because we are that backwards on that. Again, the perspective. Concentrate on this, Darryl. Concentrate on this. Our eyesight is our physical parameters of what our organ can perceive around us, right? We have side visions. We have up, down. We have three-dimensional viewing of things, don't we? But when it comes down for our own understanding of things, we're narrowed. Now, the white light experiment through a crystal, which results in multicolor spectrum. Each color is our own wavelength, our own line of thought, thinking, logic, perspective, what we're looking at and we're trying to understand. This is how we're doing it. And it's kind of hard to explain it to other people unless they see the experiment entirely, such as the white light going through a prism and seeing the multicolor. But if you want to get a two-dimensional perspective on it, look at Pink Floyd's, no, scratch, The Who. Was it Pink Floyd? Dark Side of the Moon. Yeah, it was Pink Floyd. It's Floyd. Album cover. It was the album cover. I bring this up because we are the individual lineup here. We are the whites, we are the reds. We have our own little sections over here. We do not understand this person's perspective because we don't have it. But if we are this perspective, they don't have it. We only go by what perspective we have, looking at the object. That's our understanding of things. Now, trying to teach that to the youth who's got the zeros and ones programmed into their heads. It's scary. Brave New World. Aldous Huxley. We're scared because of George Orwell's 1984. We're afraid of zeros and ones of cyber. I've seen movies, I've read books, science fiction. I may not be hip on Shakespeare and trying to enunciate and elucidate the compositions of the vocabulary and the grammar that we must use to examine our thoughts and feelings. Yeah, right. Okay, I am not Shakespeare, okay? I'm not even putting myself on a damn stage to doing this kind of crap. I understand it. I've seen it. It scares the hell out of me every time I keep putting myself on a stage like that. I haven't taken a communication class. You know, I've been going to college for about over 10 years right now. Yeah, seriously, since 2015. So coming up, I'll be coming up on 10 years, a decade of it. There should be an award pin for surviving college this long. Normally, when you go through a community college, Darryl, it's about 2.5 years of intensive training. But only if you're young enough and you want to go through the academic courses, a program where you're going to be passing from the associated arts degree, the lowest level of college learning and education, to the more advanced, which would have been master's, and then bachelor's, and then PhD. Ugh. Being a PhD stuck in one topic, oh God. I like general knowledge. I like to learn what's going on around me. And here's the thing, Darryl. A long time ago, I stuck my nose in a book and couldn't get the thing off my face. Or couldn't. I liked reading. I like escapism. I remember confiscating one of my brother's books. I wish I hadn't. If I still have it, I don't know. It was called Whip. It was almost a fictional piece of literature regarding World War II fighter bomber squadron created out of dilapidated and broken down bombers into an effective fighting force in the Solomons. Roughest, grossest language you had ever seen in this book, and yet it brought you into World War II. My brother was reading a book called Rascal about a boy and his raccoon. I never read it. I read Charlotte's Web. I read Stuart Little. I read Winnie the Pooh. Children's books. But I remember my mother giving me other books to read, science books. Something about black holes I was reading about. Couldn't even find that book anymore. I don't know where and what that title was, but I read so much about it. About curved space-time. I also read about the space program since I was also a space nerd. Astronautics. I wanted to be one. I wanted to be in space. I was not imagining a kid in space. I was imagining myself as an adult. But there's a lot more to being an astronaut. You'd have to understand math and science. But also have the wonder of a poet when you look out into the dark and maybe see something out there. Me and mathematics, the higher mathematics, I don't know if my brain was still working on that stuff or not. I never liked it. And then there was cursive, the language of the torture of the fingertips. But the stylus in your hand. Not just to twirl it around, but to put it on a piece of paper and effectively communicate to people left and right. To grab something of a notebook. This would have been the writer's bread and butter. This would have been the writer's need for communication. This would be the dreaded blank sheet. Scary, is it? I don't know if I can actually do the cursive. It's been a while since I've actually done something like this. I would have to relook at the whole chart again just to see if I can copy the damn thing. Printing's one thing, and my printing language has always been lousy. But I've always had a lousier issue doing these kind of things because my cursive, my handwriting style, the mechanics of it, the fluidity of having that stylus sing on a sheet of paper, forget it. I'd write off-key notes if we're putting this into a musical context. Speaking of which, got neighbors up this morning. Anyway, we got Fuzzy. Fuzzy over here. Fuzzy. Oh, how many times did I had to write standards in elementary school? For certain behaviors I did, and the teacher did not like, I had to write standards like crazy on a sheet of paper. So many times. Each time was supposed to bend a line. I pissed off a teacher one time. I think it was the third grade teacher. Almost fourth grade, one of those two. And she was getting sick and tired of some kind of action I was doing or action I didn't take. And that was, I forgot what the action was. Probably not obeying her because I was reading instead of doing activity. And, you know, they would strongly encourage students to read. But when it comes down for activity outside, I didn't participate with anybody. Nobody. Isolated. I prefer sticking my face into a book or a comic book at least. A coloring book? Maybe about first or second grade. First grade, I think. I really wasn't much of a joiner anyway. But I remember writing those standards in a compartmentalized section and then putting them in columns. And the teacher was not impressed. I had to rewrite the damn things. I had to stay after school and go back home and tell Ma what happened. I don't remember. I don't remember the major details on that thing. But suffice it to say that the teachers had to keep an extra eye on me. My handwriting style sucked anyway. Man, how many times I kept writing in the lines? It sucked. But as long as we could read our own shorthand, different story altogether. I included a link into your description box. I'm going to put this video in there too. Dude, the reason why I kept going back to history courses in my later adult life, but also trying to learn something about that in my youth. I wanted to learn things. But Ma said I was too damn intelligent. I thought I was too damn dumb. If I couldn't get mathematics, I really thought I was dumb. I could understand, try to understand the mechanics of and then the brain freezes up on that point. Wordsworth, Frost, Burns. But I couldn't understand about a wee beastie anyway. But if they stuck me in with Coleridge, Coleridge's Rhyme of an Ancient Mariner, then in my adult life I would look back at the poem. I would look back not just at sentence structure, but the character himself. And I would emulate that particular character because the character would be me. And I'd look at it through my own eyes. The ship in itself would be a journey, a discovery, a repentance. There's a thing about repentance and about religion and about faith that you just can't knock on people about that one, dude. It's one thing that you can knock on people regarding their literary skills because it was up to them to have that passion, but they also need to have that instilled on why they need to have that passion. There's always a spark inside of us, and it takes someone or something to lead us on, to do self-discovery, to understand, to learn about things, to keep the stuff in the back of your head. And if you're a born writer, it's not just the pages of notebooks that you'd keep. It's the notebooks inside the head, the backspaces that you'd have to keep in there too. Because certain pieces of knowledge would come out and they would help out. In order to write a particular type of book, one would have to know the topic very well. Have experiences, or at least academic. But academic doesn't substitute enough for actual experience. If one actually got on a boat, for example, one could feel the boat, one could go through the waters, understand the waves, understand the actions, the fluidity, the dynamics of a lot of forces at work: wind, water, human. How does one defy nature as he takes a small boat with a small canvas attached to a pole and expect to sail? But in the ancient days they did. They challenged nature. And boats made of wooden material. Wood was lighter to use instead of stone. Palm fronds maybe. But tubes made out of bamboo tied together in a certain fashion. That would be like a raft, wouldn't it? Floating on the water. Find a way to attach another tube to go perpendicular, actually to go, you would have a flat surface of a tube lined up. But somewhere in the middle of that tube would have been the stand to put the mast, to put the sail on. A piece of canvas, animal canvas maybe, something made out of palm fronds attached. Ancient travelers would sail on those things across the Pacific waters, island to island to island, challenging nature, learning to understand the moods of the water and of the winds, and navigate by stars. And then when we'd get more civilized, we would need manpower. Stroke, 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 whip, ouch! And then again, I've got my own whip and ouch whining. Hang on, Val. Okay. Getting away from the waters. You believe that 10-year-old a long time ago, back in the 80s, had his own book published because of the knowledge he learned from someone else's theatrical version of what science fiction was supposed to be. He made a quiz book out of it. So he watched the movie over and over again, and with the help of his parents created a format to where this book to this day would be a bestseller and a collector's item at the same time. A young 10-year-old at the time, when we were just growing up and living as pre-teens, it was pretty insulting seeing a 10-year-old get published and not as teenagers. Why? But he wrote a Star Wars quiz book. A lot of things we took for granted because we're of that time and of that era. But now we're into zeros and ones, dude. Did you ever read some of the science fiction stuff about cyberpunk? I never knew what the hell cyberpunk was until I came across that damn terminology. Growing up, we never did have the cyberpunk, but it was there. You didn't see it, you didn't read it, you didn't see the movies? You didn't come across the authors who were talking about the future? Gravity, where the hell you were hiding at? We got it right now. We have cyberpunk right now in front of our face. I talk from a laptop with a camera. A little tiny camera on there with a light shining at me, telling me that the camera's on. And I have a computer screen showing me on there doing whatever and talking to you. I would have another camera over here. If I turn it on, I would have the other computer screen work. I have this technology here. You're saying that kids don't read. Well, yeah, I don't know why they're not motivated. The problem is the instructors and the districts and the states have to motivate them. I saw the article a couple of years back. It's not the federal government, but there are factors involved that not happening in our current time period. When we were growing up in our own areas, but along the same timeline, we had those things that we're familiar with now that the newest generation doesn't understand because of perspective, and you forget this all the damn time. I say history, history, history. Why? Because history is relevant. It's always relevant. Time, perspective, events, things that led us up to this point in time, the decisions we make that leads up to the future. We older adults understand this because we're aging and we're coming up to the extinction point, and after that, there's nothing left of us. But we have to keep expressing our knowledge and our understanding of what we know to them in whatever format we have. It's going to be up for them to decipher this. And, as I said before, history, 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 right? The link that I put in there talks about forms of communication. I'm going to pose this to you, Darryl. This is science fiction right now compared to hieroglyphics, compared to paintings on stone. Think about that one. We may think they're dumb, but if they're navigating better than we are with the zeros and ones, I don't think it's stupid. I hate it when evolution takes weird-ass turns, but they're taking weird-ass turns. And we adults are still trying to be dragged along to understand it all. We are our own mariners. So, I am going to have to locate the rhyme of the ancient mariner. And I'm going to have to send it over to you. Because you need to understand. One more thing. Would it hurt you to go through college courses, even to get your skills up to speed? You know, just take a couple of courses if you can afford it. Or better yet, not just open up the fictional books, but research into other materials. Not the political crap, because that'll get you twisted around, unless you want to get yourself twisted around, be my guest. But no. And also listen to TED Talks and understand more. Education is a continuing thing, it's a continuing course. We still have to keep ourselves apprised of what was going on around us all the time. My mother had always gotten me hooked on news all the time to keep up with current events. But I also liked reading about science. When I read science articles, I was like, okay, let me see about this one here. And yes, to have a book of thesaurus and a dictionary, a writer's tools, main tools that they need, the dictionary and the thesaurus. Because we had to have the synonyms and the antonyms. We have to find out what's the verb, what's the adjective. One must have the dictionary to find these things out. That does make me sound smart. It is a word that is a fingernails on a blackboard style. Irritating as hell. But I'm smart. I know words. I know the right words. Well, hell, I can wake up in the morning and sound like that sometimes. Only because I haven't had my coffee or my sleep's been screwed up. I'll blame my insomnia to my dog. My sleep apnea on life itself. I can find the blame, but taking responsibility for it, I gotta do that, and I gotta sleep with a machine from hell called a CPAP. Continuous positive air pressure. Forcing air down my throat. At least it's not a BiPAP, thank God. I couldn't stand it. No, thank you. I can't do with that one. But on to the rhyme of the ancient mariner. Rim of the world knew of the ancient mariner. We are all the mariner. I understood that Coleridge, when he wrote this story, he was trying to get money out of the damn thing. He was just writing a story. Did he ever do a deep dive to understand if this story was going to be one of the most profound out there? And did he actually have an idea this would be affecting a great deal of people? And I have to say it, but this was affecting me a great deal when I read this thing. Archive! Archive.org. Okay, let me get the link on this monster. It's a PDF. You'll be able to read electronically. I just hope your eyesight's ready for it. Nothing wrong with it, dude. It's just things we got to put up with. I'm trying to stay away from the politics right now because it's an ugly thing. It is an ugly thing. So I am posting a story into your material here. Read. Okay, that being said, I gotta get this posted.